Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode where we are intentionally going to sit together and think out loud, hold space for each other, and just reflect, right? Every week we take a moment for ourselves just to think about important things that maybe most of us can relate to. So, today's topic is when it gets quiet, what gets loud? Let's get into it. Many of us avoid quiet moments, silent places, and moments of silence because it can feel very uncomfortable. It can, bring up a lot of things for us. And I just want us today to think about, before putting ourselves in quiet spaces, I just want us to be curious of what comes up for each one of us, be it in our minds, be it in our bodies, when we are in quiet places. Because oftentimes the things that come up for us are exactly what causes us to avoid silent moments, quiet moments, or moments alone, right? And it can get very loud. It can get very loud in very quiet moments. That sounds a bit like, opposing the idea, but it can. When you're sitting by yourself, you can sometimes experience like a lot of racing thoughts, or even if it's one thought, it can feel like if the thought had a tone. I always say our thoughts have tones, they have volume, they obviously have vocabulary, the choice of words. Last week we were speaking about choice of words, the connotations to those words. So it gets very loud. That's what I mean when I say what gets loud. Our bodies. What happens to your body when you are alone, when you are still, sitting still? Many people can't sit still. The amount of people I come across that just can't, even in the session, can't sit still. In personal spaces, cannot sit still. Like there's something around silence and stillness that sometimes, or in some seasons of our lives, brings up something. And I want us today to think about, for you, for me, Hopelang, what is that something? It takes a lot of bravery. Let's just acknowledge that. As a result, it takes a lot of bravery for you to intentionally put yourself in moments of quiet, isolation, alone, stillness, whatever you want to call it. And, after today, I hope that we will gain some bravery to be intentional, either after this episode, or at least, I recommend at least once in a day to create space of quiet so that you can start to attend to the things that are getting loud, so that you can start to be the person that creates the environment of safety in order to be quiet. And I want you to take a chance and the opportunity to sit by yourself after this episode, and be it you're outside in nature, you're in a quiet room in your home, in your car. Not everybody has the luxury of being alone. So just wherever you feel you can have no distractions, people can't find you, and you'll be able to have at least a moment, 10-15 minutes minimum. If you have the luxury and time and blessing to extend that, perfect. But 10-15 minutes. Okay, I want you to remain curious in this episode, and in this time together. I want you to remain non-judgmental. A lot of us have a very loud, mean, not the kindest inner critic for ourselves and others. But in this episode, in this moment shared together, let's just take the posture of curiosity and the posture of no judgment as we maybe discover or think or reflect about what gets loud for us. So in our spirit of curiosity, we're just going to notice things, okay? We're going to take mental notes. I want you to imagine that we're sitting here together. Nobody's in your mind. Nobody's in my mind. Nobody's going to know what I'm thinking as I am talking you through this and spending time with you. So we're all not going to know. Just take mental notes. Or if you really do want to write it down and you're that kind of person and you're engaged in our chat and conversation right now, perfect. See what comes up. Let's ask ourselves, as we're sitting wherever you are, be it your car or outside or in your room, ask yourself, in moments of silence, or even now, right? Even now, as the topic comes up, as I am speaking to you, what are you hearing? What am I hearing? Let me ask myself. So we're all doing it. So let me speak in first person. What am I hearing? What am I noticing in my mind? If I had a notepad right now, what would I be writing? What is that thought at the back of my mind, even though I'm speaking? Because that happens to us, right? There's always some thought. Let's remain curious. Ask yourself, what is sounding loud in this moment? So it can be this moment that we're sitting here together right now. It can be in this moment, this day, when I woke up, this season of my life. What is sounding loud? What is the thought I am having right now as I am asking myself these questions? Do I feel... Let's not get to feelings first. What am I thinking about what we are talking about? Okay? Where does this thing or the things that I have noted in the last 2 minutes to 5 minutes come from? I don't know. Where could they come from? I want you to guess. All right? We're just remaining curious. We're just remaining non-judgmental. Even for those of us who already know, I know where that comes from. I know where that thought is. And because some of us maybe are so in tune with ourselves that we've started doing the work, right? Doesn't matter. Notice what comes up. Notice the feelings. Write them down. Mental notes for us who aren't writing it down physically on paper. Who does it sound like? So right now, it's me, right? It's my voice. It's you, whoever you are, that I'm speaking to. But if I were to enter your mind and body and go down the experiences that caused the things or created the things that you have noted to become loud in your quiet moments, who would I encounter? Who would I see and hear? How would they sound? Start to draw a picture. If you were going to, describe that person or those people, who would it be? Who does it sound like? Who does it remind me of? Okay, I want us all to think, this thought, if I were to give it a person or a name or a memory. And a lot of us struggle with memories, right? A lot of people say, I don't remember my childhood. I don't remember this. I just know that I've always struggled with this. That's fine. No pressure, no judgment. Focus on that inner voice right now. He or she might feel frustrated at these questions. It's okay. The fact that you're even just, open to having the conversation with yourself, you're open to having the conversation with me, you'll get there. We're practicing, okay? Remember I said last week, practice doesn't make perfect. There's no such thing. Practice makes or helps maintain good enough. We'll eventually all learn how to get to that good enough. Today we're just curious. Why could this be? Why could this thought, this thing that I'm feeling in my body right now as we're engaging in this topic, as I'm starting to settle and listen to Hopelang, why could this be happening to me? Curious. I don't know. Let's just think about it. Why could this be for me in this moment? Why does this happen in moments of silence and quiet? What is it that I associate silence, stillness, moments of isolation with? What happens? What could this be? Why could this be for me? When it is not quiet, how can this be showing up in other ways? Now, this question, oof. This one requires looking ourselves in the mirror. This now takes us to probably one of the very things that a lot of us, or causes a lot of us to avoid silences or moments alone in the first place. Because when we're alone, something of like a mirror comes up and we have to say, how does this show up? It requires us to say, that wasn't a great version of me in that moment, or I tend to do this, I tend to say this, be it to yourself or others. And the reason I keep saying every so often, just remain curious and non-judgmental, is because a lot of us then get punitive. We get very, very, very strict with ourselves. This is not what today is about. Today is just about taking notes so that we can get to the things that eventually help us shift that if we desire. Do I even know? So we've asked a lot of questions to ourselves. Do I even know the answer to these questions? And if I don't, how does that feel? Does it feel scary? Does it feel comfortable? Have you already decided, I'm not carrying on with this conversation, I'm moving on? Okay, there's a difference between this topic is not for me, this podcast isn't for me, versus I'm starting to feel uncomfortable. Just remain curious. Do you even know? Ask yourself now in practical forms, am I the kind of person that struggles to start or complete tasks and projects? Do my relationships feel unstable? Is there something bothering me but I've never said it out loud? These are just examples of how sometimes the things that are loud are showing up in ways that aren't helpful to us, unhelpful to the people we encounter, things or areas that we might want to change and shift because we no longer want to function that way or be that way. But we first have to stop avoiding the silences to discover that, right? You might be the kind of person where if you're struggling to complete or start tasks and projects, what gets loud is procrastination. Underlying procrastination could be anxiety. Underlying anxiety could be a sense of insecurity, a sense of not feeling equipped or qualified. Then we're going to get to what makes you feel qualified. Okay, is it others? Is it yourself? Is it a piece of paper that says you are qualified? There's a lot that silent moments help us discover. And I just want to reframe and shift something for all of us. The very unpleasant feelings, the very unpleasant thoughts that we have power. So silent moments offer us an opportunity to engage with power. The only thing is that the power that we feel, the energy that we feel in our emotions and our thoughts in those silent moments or moments alone, is that the power is geared to things that are not helpful, that are not serving us, that are not taking out the best version of ourselves. We, through this process and this conversation with self and each other, are going to try shift that power. We're not going to try shut it down. We're not going to try diminish that power. We're going to use that power. If it's there and it's within us, might as well benefit from it, right? And gain from it. So easier said than done, because I also recognize that a sense of energy and power can feel crippling. It can be crippling to feel anxious. It can feel crippling to withstand an increased heart rate. It can feel very crippling to, notice tension and actually feel the stress that we carry in our body, or to notice that, oh my gosh, I have a headache. I've had a headache all day. I function most days with a headache. Why? Because I've got racing thoughts. I've got many thoughts that are playing over and over and over, and it feels like just a never-ending loop. So I don't want to be dismissive of how crippling that energy is, but I want us to just start trying to imagine that we are going to somehow shift that power one day into something that can be helpful. And we're going to channel that, right? So our task is to learn how to channel this power into something that is helpful and shift us into healthy encounters, first with self, then with others. We can't offer anybody anything that we can't offer ourselves. And that's why I always speak of me first. That's why I always, even when I encounter something that feels unpleasant when engaging with somebody else, yes, I note that this is how this person feels, but I always come back to me, because I remain curious about what is it about this encounter? What is happening that requires retreat? Okay, so one of the ways that you can start to channel this energy or start to shift the power is to invite the power. I say invite what is happening, whatever gets loud, to the dinner table. Whatever your favorite meal is in the day. Breakfast table, lunch table, brunch, whatever. Invite it to the table. You get to come in the room. You're already here. The discomfort is already here. The insecurity, you're already here. The unkind inner self-critic, you're already here. You're already in the room. I just haven't consciously said, let's have a seat at my dinner table. Some of our dinner tables might be quite large and long and have many seats. Some, it might be just you and I, just, one thing, or, very intimate. So our dinner tables are going to look different. But join me at this dinner table, since you're already in the room, with no judgment and the utmost curiosity. Okay? Make friendly with the unfriendly. The things that are unfriendly to you, invite them to be friends. You approach them to say, let's become friends. And how do you become friends with somebody? You give them time. Okay? You give them space. You greet them. Before you became best friends with somebody, before you became friends with somebody, you had to open the door to say, hi, welcome. I don't know if you can stay, but you can come. Let me check you out. So let's have this chat. And I want you to keep in your mind that this is your mind. This is not an opinion of mine. This is a fact. This is your mind. And so when I'm inviting you to my dinner table, I'm still going to hold in my authority that this is my mind. Okay? And I'm going to take that back somehow by first saying, you're already in my mind. Let's see what's happening here. Okay, so take authority over your mind and focus on the fact that you can get to a point where you eventually command authority over your mind, over your thoughts, over these things that get loud. Okay, and you already have in the moment where you've invited them to the dinner table. Think of it this way. So where you feel the most crippled is an area where is an area that once you heal it, right? Once you heal it, you're going to have much gain. It sounds a bit bizarre because, we get wrapped up and really crippled or focused on how powerless we feel in these moments. But actually, like the gym, the muscles that I have, so for me personally, when I go to the gym, and it's always been, the weakest part of my muscles and body is my upper body strength. My legs, all of that, leg day champion can do anything. Well, not anything, but you get what I mean. My upper body strength, not so much. The more I say, okay, one, I'm going to acknowledge that. I'm just going to radically acknowledge and accept that it doesn't come naturally to me to feel strong in this area. I'm going to invite you to the dinner table, and I'm going to, well, not the dinner table, we're at gym now. I'm going to invite you to the gym, and I'm going to work on this muscle. Then I realize that then there's power to be gained. You build power. Not every situation or person or circumstance naturally comes with power. You know, some things, yes, but quite often the things that get loud for us are things that we need to work on. So we've noted the thoughts, the loud things. We're all sitting at the dinner table with them. Then we need to decide what we no longer want to be at the dinner table. Ultimately, what we no longer want to be occupying our minds, because they are ours. It's my mind, it's my body. What do I no longer want to be there? Also, just be curious about what you are doing to assist the things that get loud to be seated at that dinner table, to have come in the room in the first place, to have so much power, because you weren't born that way. Nobody was born feeling the ultimate heightened, unless like there was extreme trauma. Please let me not dismiss, you know, traumatic events, unless there was like extreme trauma while, you know, your mom was pregnant and immediately through birth. Most people, you know, incrementally build or not build, incrementally learn or experience things that then get them into positions of feeling disempowered or helpless, right? You weren't so in that context. And if, you know, you've experienced traumatic experiences, which most of us have, we then become adults who grow up and maintain that very thing without noticing it, right? So for example, I spoke about social media algorithm on my Instagram this week. When was the last time that you actually intentionally looked at your algorithm across social media platforms? What are you consuming every day? Who do you follow? What do they talk about? Why are you interested in this content? How is it contributing to you? Initially, when you started following that page, what were you trying to get and gain? Is it still relevant? Is it now starting to make you anxious as opposed to what it initially was? When was the last time you did a social media spring clean? Because those are some of the things that contribute to maintaining these thoughts, maintaining the anxiety in our bodies, maintaining heart palpitations and nervousness, or a sense of nervousness where your nervous system is just jittery. It's just sitting here consistently and you don't notice it because you're just consuming things that are not helpful. Okay? What are you reading? What are you watching on TV? Who are you speaking to? What are you normalizing in your mind? What has become the norm? Most of us are unconscious, or most of us realize it and do nothing about it, right? In seasons of isolation doesn't necessarily equate to loneliness, but when you are in a season of aloneness, or whether it's intentional or not, do you feel lonely? Let's be curious about that, because you hear that a lot. I hear a lot of people saying, I can't be alone, I don't want to be alone. And I say, why? Hooplang, why don't you want to be alone? Because it's lonely. And I'm always curious as to why. Why do we equate being alone or seasons of isolation with loneliness? That's because most of us then feel very empty inside. But people, places, and things will never fill that void, right? We know this. And we need to lean into the curiosity of, am I a person who needs to fill up parts of myself? Because the only reason I'm always around certain people, places, and things, and always busy, go, is because I feel very empty in certain areas. What's happening for you that aloneness goes hand in hand with loneliness? There's a difference between being alone and being and feeling lonely. Those two things don't necessarily go hand in hand all the time. So what comes up for you when it's quiet and it's silent? What does it feel like when you're not always chasing the noise? We live in very busy societies and communities where we're encouraged to do. I mean, I'm one of those people. I've got multiple things that I'm juggling. I'm a mom. I've got my career. My career looks vast. I just started this podcast. So what does it feel like when you're not chasing the noise? What does it feel like when you're not chasing the achievement, the goal? Do you know that you're worthy even without those things? Like, what is the reason for it? Like, there are seasons of doing, and then there are seasons of relaxing. Most people cannot stop, cannot pause, cannot relax. The amount of people I speak to that don't take leave ever, or if they do, it's very short lived. Like, they take long weekends, but never 2 weeks of leave, 1 week of leave. And I'm like, okay, so you don't know how to rest, because a lot of us don't know how. What is it about? What is it about this rat race, right? A lot of us will say to people, I feel trapped in the rat race. Yeah, what happens when you press pause? Curiosity, remember. And the reason I'm talking about do you feel worthy regardless is because sometimes I speak to people, and the common theme that comes up in those conversations is that there's something underlying, a sense of value, sense of self-worth, and without this thing. So if people took away my PhD, if people took away my master's, would I still feel smart? Would I still feel worthy? Would I still feel like I am the kind of person that connects with people, that is able to bring something to the table when I'm engaging with people? All right, outside of the fact that my field needs it, what underlies and defines my sense of self-worth? Because if we round it back to the first question of what gets loud when it gets quiet, those things tend to link. So most of us, if I had to ask us now, do you know how to rest? Do you value it? Do you value rest? Do you value quiet? Do you equate it to laziness when you're still? I heard somebody saying this week, no, I need to keep doing because it's lazy when I rest. No, it's healthy, it's productive, it's energizing, it replenishes you. In order to be who exactly you are, which is effective, excellent, the achiever, the whoever, right? It's the person I speak, the way that they describe themselves. You need to rejuvenate. You need to rest. In order to excel, you need to reflect. We need to have conversations like this. After I record this, I need to go think about it before even, moving on to the next thing. Otherwise, you piling up things moment to moment, day to day, and how are you, if you're not taking stock of anything, how are you ever going to get to a point where you even able to track yourself, right? How are you going to know what's working, what's not? And on this topic of rest, so one of the 3 things that we tackle when we're treating depression and anxiety is rest. It's sleep, right? So we will tackle your diet, your physical movement, and sleep. If that doesn't tell us how important moments of pause, silence are in order to rejuvenate, right? Then I don't know. So taking breaks, I want us to reframe that taking breaks has power. Okay, there's a power in a pause. There's seasons of rest for a reason. There's seasons of listening to ourselves. Okay, there are times where we are talking, doing, but we need to start emphasizing the importance of seasons of just listening, taking stock, listening. At the end of this, at the end of every episode, what do? I ground myself, I listen to myself, I tune into myself, because I've spent 40 minutes just speaking, right? So there needs to be like a balance. So before we can comfortably enter into these spaces of quiet or of isolation, of pause, we have to first sit in the discomfort of discovering what it is that is coming up, or what it is that is causing the discomfort. Bravery, right? It's a moment of bravery. This conversation, if you've gotten this far to this podcast, this episode, it means that there's a part of you that resonates with, I'm that person that actually doesn't take consistent or conscious times of silence, or I can't remember the last time I sat with myself and checked in with myself. So for me, what got loud this week when I was in my silent moment and I was avoiding using social media, because sometimes that's where I go, and I was just relentlessly scrolling, was getting to a point where the social media scrolling wasn't helping, and I was forced into a moment of silence. And what came up was me noticing that I was self-sabotaging in a particular area. And that's why I was on social media in the first place. I was self-sabotaging in a particular area, and I eventually had to force myself to examine what it is that I was self-sabotaging. Why am I self-sabotaging? And then, as if I wasn't emotionally exhausted enough, because this conversation is easier said than done. It's draining. Like, after this, I'm going to do something energizing for myself. I still need to think about what that is. But because going into these reflective parts of ourselves are exhausting. But anyway, I then had to dig deeper, and I came to a moment of realization that there's this area in my life that is still a problem. I thought it was sorted out. It hasn't. It wasn't sorted out. I thought that I've worked on this before. It hasn't been showing up in a while, but the particular task that I had to do for that week absolutely triggered it again. And the reason we avoid quiet moments is because then your inner critic kicks in and says, Hoplang, why is this still a problem for you? Have I forgotten that I overcame it once before? Am I feeling tired? Year-end fatigue is kicking in for all of us. Am I feeling too tired to do the work that it requires to, consistency is exhausting. That's the truth. That is the truth. As human beings, we want to remain consistent, but it's exhausting. And so I empathize with myself and others when it comes to that. And anyway, I had to then be gentle with that before I could attend to it and, nurture that. And sometimes avoidance feels helpful, but it's temporary. The avoidance, like I said, of me scrolling for a full day, knowing that I'm self-sabotaging and not getting to the thing that I needed to get to, eventually started causing me anxiety. So it became counterintuitive. It forced me into a moment of having to reflect on what on earth is going on here. Long-term avoidance, detaching from things, it exacerbates anxiety. We do it for so long that a lot of people then don't even recognize anymore what it is that's causing them anxiety. Why? Because we've gotten into this pattern of avoidance, of sitting with self and keeping track with self, or doing things even when we don't feel like doing them, like me, where I'm like, I'm so tired of working at the same thing. So this week, I implore all of us to be intentional as much as we can. Create moments of stillness and silence, and just be alone, like this episode. I hope you're watching it alone and you've already then taken your moment for the day to be alone. Well, together, but you know what I mean. And be curious to see what you find. We won't always find the same things. What I found this week may not be there next week. What I find next week may continue to be there for a long time. And I'll only know that if I continue to keep creating moments of silence and stillness. So let's see what we all find. But as our tradition here in our community and intentional conscious time, I am going to close my eyes and tune into my five senses, and I am going to see what randomly comes up for me in this moment of silence. And then I'm going to think out loud with you for 30 seconds. It's usually longer, but let's see. Okay. I am feeling, what is getting loud? I'm nervous. I'm not nervous about this moment right now. I'm nervous about a future upcoming event. And I've been nervous about it for a long time, if I'm being honest and open and vulnerable with you guys. I'm worried about it. I'm worried about how it will be received, how I will be received. And I'm very aware that I am avoiding preparing for it as a result. So that's what's coming for me before I get into a whole thing. Thank you again for spending time together, tuning in, subscribing, watching. Engage in the comments, share as much as you feel comfortable to, and see you again next time.